Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthen, founder of the VeteranCrowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Like a pro. Military affairs and government.
So military, veteran, and government affairs.
Military, veteran, and government affairs. Should I get that right? See how organized I am? Okay. All right, here we go. Hey, welcome everybody. This is Bob Louthen, host of The Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. Very pleased to have as our guest today a U.S. Naval Academy graduate, the National University Senior VP for Military, Veteran, and Government Affairs, Kim Mitchell. Kim, welcome to the program. Thank you for stepping into the spotlight.
Glad to be here, Bob. Thank you for the invitation.
It's great to meet you. I have to tell you, I don't know a lot about National University. Tell us about National University. You're in the Washington, D.C. area, but National University really is national, isn't it?
It is. National University actually is headquartered in San Diego. It was founded 50 years ago by a retired Navy captain who saw the need for a different type of modality for higher education for those specifically looking, those adult learners, those veterans that were looking to serve. So he created actually a 30-day course that was primarily because during 1971, there was people getting called up to be deployed to Vietnam, and they were typically given 30 days. And so he wanted these men to be able to take a class in that 30 days prior to deploying and then not have to worry about it. So we still have that model today. Most of our classes are about 30 days in length. So, we have rolling admission, 12 months out of the year, which is sometimes, there are the pros and cons to everything. But when you start the class on the first of the month, you've taken the final by the end of the month. You are a full-time student taking one class a month. We're pretty much, again, adult learners. 30% of our student population is military affiliated. So it includes active duty veterans, spouses, dependents. Most of our classes are asynchronous, meaning they're not live. So, and it really works well with adult learners and folks that have lives so that they can do what they have to do during the daytime with their job or their family, come home, maybe they have to prepare dinner, help kids with schoolwork, all those different life things that people are doing when they're all grown up, right? And then maybe at 10 o'clock at night after everyone else is to bed, they can log onto their laptop and do their coursework and do their assignments and their reading and whatnot.
I like the immersive model here where you're focused on one at a time. And then what degrees are people working towards at National University?
Oh, we have various degrees. So we primarily have a lot of associate degrees and bachelor's degrees. We actually have some master's degrees and we have a couple doctorates, and we're looking to expand that. But something unique that we just started was National University partnered with the Center for Creative Leadership, which is in, I think, North Carolina. And we created an online MBA that is completely online and in 1 year. So that's very conducive. It's not your typical MBA, right? It's very conducive for those that are working and working towards, bettering themselves in business and administration. And so we've just got approval from the VA, so veterans can use their VA benefits for that. So what I would love to see is for those veterans and those service members that maybe have always wanted to get an MBA and maybe not having the opportunity for under $20,000, which your VA, if you have post 9/11 GI Bill or VA benefits, quite often takes care of either all of that or the majority of that to be able to get a degree such as that.
And in your role as a senior VP for military veteran and government affairs, what's the scope of that? Let's talk a little bit about that now that we're, on the Veteran Crowd Network here.
Well, one of the things is I'm basically the face of the military veteran outreach for National University. I have an outreach team that is kind of scattered among around the country. So I have 3 people here in Virginia. I have another person that's now in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got an active duty spouse at Fort Rucker, Alabama, and I've got actually an active duty National Guard service member, and she's down at Fort Bliss down in Texas. And then I have a few in San Diego. But between that team, and then we work directly for the National University System workforce education solutions, creating partnerships within the community, really looking at career pathways, because that's so vitally important, especially these days. People want to go to school to be able to get the good job that they want after the service, or even if they've already made that transition, to be able to maybe upskill or reskill to be able to get the job that they need to have to be able to provide for their families.
National University's got some scale. I mean, there's quite a few alumni at this point. How many, typically, how many people are enrolled at a given point in time? And how do you measure that, since it's sort of, one at a time as opposed to, a more traditional school?
Well, I think on average, from what I've been able to find out from the folks that have been at National University much longer than I, as I've only been there since March of last year, is we roughly have about 30,000 students a year. We've got over 186,000 alumni, which is, I take a look at some of my network, especially like on LinkedIn, and I'll type in National University. It astonishes me how many of my network actually have like either bachelor's degrees or master's degrees from National University, and I never knew it, right? They for people from my Navy days, and now here I am working at National University too, because I know that we can do more, right? We can do more for those who are serving, and we're in a transformation period where we're really looking at what we can do better for those who are serving, and those specifically who are veterans and their spouses. One of the things that I keep bringing on and focusing the university on is it's the service members and the veterans, but we can't forget the spouses and the dependents, because the spouses need education and meaningful employment just as much as the veteran does.
That's an incredible point. They're moving around. It's hard for them to stay in one place long enough to be affiliated with a traditional school, and so you really are filling that void for that family that's following that service member around from one post to another.
That's right.
Honor, duty, service. At the Veteran Crowd Network, we're focused on our next mission, bringing veterans, veteran-operated businesses, and veteran service organizations together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. That's why we are launching the Veteran Crowd Rewards Program, exclusively for our individual and corporate members. Now you can save on travel, restaurants, goods, and services from brands you trust online and at over 900,000 locations nationwide. Find out more today at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. If you are a veteran-operated business, or a VSO, consider the connections, the network, the benefits, the engagement, and success of working with other veterans again. The Veteran Crowd Network, you paid a lot of dues to join this club.
Hey, we're talking with Kim Mitchell. Kim is the Senior Vice President at National University for Military, Veteran, and Government Affairs. Hey, Kim, you have a special story. We talked about 1971 as the founding date for National University, but 1971 was another bellwether date for you personally. You have an interesting story.
I certainly do. And it was, I never thought it was interesting growing up, but apparently it's something that people like to hear.
All right. Well, tell us, you were born in Vietnam.
Yes, yes. And in 1970, I guess the short version of the story is in 1971, when the North Vietnamese were advancing into Quang Tri. A South Vietnamese Marine and his company were assigned to evacuate the village and then blow up the Mu Chang Bridge, which was just south of the village. And right before they blew up the bridge, one last survivor stumbled across the bridge carrying a bundle. And when they went to investigate, they noticed that the bundle that he was carrying was a baby wrapped up in a towel and placed in his hat. And when they questioned him about it, he said that he had found the baby alongside the road, trying to nurse on her dead mother. But he presented this child that he had in his hat to this South Vietnamese Marine. And he said, he goes, I can't go any further, but take this child, save this baby's life. And down to Da Nang, there's an orphanage in Da Nang. And so the South Vietnamese Marine, his name was Bao Tran, took it upon himself to take a company jeep and go down to Da Nang and present the child to the nuns. And when he did, they asked him to name her, and he gave the name of the first child that he was going to have, his first daughter, which would mean Nak Bik, meaning precious pearl. A couple months later, a U.S. airman who was stationed at the air base in Da Nang did as many service members did during that time, and would go over to the orphanage to bring supplies, clothes, candy, water to the nuns to help give them to the children, because sometimes maybe hanging out with kids at an orphanage kind of took them away from their everyday life, especially being in a combat zone. And one day they placed baby number 899 into his arms, and he fell in love. And in September of 72, I was fortunate enough to be adopted. I was 10 months old, brought to the United States to start living my American dream life, growing up as an American. And my father then retired when I was about 6 years old, and we moved up to northern Wisconsin, where my mom was from. And so that's where I spent my entire childhood, in northern Wisconsin. In a little town called Solon Springs.
You are baby number 899.
Yes.
Precious pearl. Man, I tell you, you're hitting me right here in the heartstrings, Kim. Hey, you came to the United States. We mentioned a fellow colleague of ours, Francis Hong. You came to the United States. What led you to attend the Naval Academy?
Well, honestly, my father when I was about in third grade, which must have been 1980, which is, as you remember, is the first year that the first class that women were admitted into the Naval Academy. But he started talking to me when I was in third grade about me going to the Air Force Academy. I know that I remember that I was very attracted to the military structure, the routine, the discipline of the Air Force when my father was in the Air Force. So I was all for it. So I grew up, thinking that I was going to go to the Air Force Academy. I told everyone I was going to go to the Air Force Academy. And then it just happened when I was a sophomore in high school. I was selected to go to the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Seminar in southern Wisconsin as a representative for my school. And I went down there and I met a retired Navy admiral who quickly changed my mind that the Naval Academy would be a much better place to attend than the Air Force Academy. And so I applied to the Naval Academy and was fortunate enough to be admitted into the Naval Academy Prep School for a year in Newport, Rhode Island, right after
were you an athlete by chance, or you just
I played sports. I played basketball and I played softball, and I ran cross country when I was in high school. I wasn't recruited for any sports because I think my purpose was I needed to graduate in academics. And going to northern Wisconsin, you don't always have at least when I went to Solon Springs, they didn't have calculus, they didn't have AP English or AP chemistry or physics. And so having that 1 year of the advanced academics that my school wasn't able to provide at the Naval Academy Prep School, it was a blessing. And then it just happened though that the 30 days off between naps and admittance into the Naval Academy that they give you, I was at home on leave, and 2 weeks before that I reported to the Naval Academy with the class in 95 at the time, my father was struck by lightning and killed on our farm. And I don't tell that part of my story for sympathy, but what I do tell that part of the story is so that people can understand that I understand what happens to a family. when something tragic like that happens. But I also understand the importance of community support and community resources that can come in and surround a family and provide outreach and be proactive to that family, and how it can build that family up. And I use that example when I go around the country and speak about the necessary importance for communities to be outreaching to our military families and our veteran families as they return to civil society after service.
You delayed entry into the Naval Academy and ultimately graduated in 96.
I did report to the Naval Academy, and I went through plebe summer with the class of 95. And then I started realizing that I needed to go home and take care of my family at home. In the Naval Academy, they had under the great leadership of Admiral Mike Haskins at the time, who was commandant and midshipman, recognized the fact that it was better for me to go home, take care of my family, and then come back the next year with the class of 96, which is what I did.
Did you have to repeat the plebe summer?
I did. So, you know,
yeah, was it second time
I've got some
around
friends who are
easier?
plebes right now, and I just basically told them, you know, I think we had 5 of them here at the house before I-Day this year. And I said, don't expect any sympathy from me. I said, I went through it twice. I said, you could go through it once.
Are you a sponsor family by any chance at this point for anybody
I
at
think
the
I'll
Academy?
be like an unofficial sponsor, because, you know, I do a lot of travel, and I wouldn't want them to have like a weekend off and I wasn't here, and then, you know, not be able to come out. So I told them anytime that I'm here and they want to come out to the house, they're more than welcome to.
What did you do after you got out of the Academy? What was your time in the Navy like?
So I was a surface warfare officer. And so that means, you know, for those of you that don't know what surface warfare is, you know, you typically, when you think of the Navy, you think of like planes and submarines and surface ships. I was an officer on board a surface ship. And I did a couple of division officer tours out of the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. And then I went up to Washington, D.C., where I was part of a brand new Navy program called the Navy Washington, D.C. Staff Intern Program, where I got my master's degree in organizational management from the George Washington University. And then I did a department head tour in Pearl Harbor and another department head tour in Bahrain as part of Desron 50. And then I went back to DC, and I did 3.5 years doing foreign military sales. Then I did a year as a military assistant to a deputy undersecretary. And then my last 2 years working directly for Admiral Mike Mullen, who was the 17th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And it was in that capacity that I became very in tune and involved with community support, because as the deputy for the Office of Warrior and Family Support, our job was to travel all around the country looking for resources for our service members, veterans, and Gold Star families, and really looking at what the challenges were, but what the model of reintegration might be, looking at education as being the baseline, whether it's a certification, maybe it's a credential or a license, or maybe it's a degree, but education being the baseline, working with employers, helping them to understand what our veterans and their spouses bring to an organization for employment, and then looking at the other community resources that are so necessary for our families.
You are a George W. Bush Institute scholar as well. Tell me briefly about that.
So the George W. Bush Presidential Center hosts different leadership programs. And one of the leadership programs is specifically for veterans, called the Stand To Veterans Leadership Program, or we call it VLP for short. And I was very fortunate enough that in 2019, I actually applied to go into the program. Now, you know, given the fact that, you know, in 2019, you know, I've already been in this business, in this veteran space for over a decade, right? So my travels to 650 communities, my knowledge was pretty great. But what I came to understand when I got accepted into the program is that the Bush Institute really selects, and in our class, we actually had 43 scholars, which is pretty unique, right? The number was, I think will always be the president's favorite class, because there was 43 of us. But there was people from all different sectors of the veteran space. There were veterans, we had actually a couple active duty service members, we had spouses, and we had civilians. We had people that had been in the space for a decade plus years, and we had people that were just getting into the space. So that wide variety of knowledge, but everyone was focused on some aspect on what they could do either in their community or their organization to help post 9/11 veterans reintegrate successfully back into the community.
You are very active on boards of community service organizations, and one I'll call a veteran service, or the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Tell us about that one.
So the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund was actually founded almost 40 years ago. Next year we celebrate our 40th year, and it was founded by a gentleman named Jan Scruggs, who for those who are Vietnam veterans and those that are very active are very familiar with his name. But they are the founders of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., otherwise known as, many people call it, the Wall. It's that living, memorial, so to speak, that Vietnam veterans and their families and brothers in arms and just everybody can come to recognize the service and the legacy of our Vietnam veterans and those over 58,000 service members, both men and women, who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And to have that place to be some sort of a spot for maybe some healing to begin for so many of those that, as you know, Bob, they came home to a country that didn't recognize service at that time, and appreciate the service. And so for a lot of them, the healing never started. And so this was all built so that this is a place where the service can be recognized for those that gave, and a place for their families can come. And I've seen, and I've been there when Vietnam veterans have traveled to the Wall for the first time, and they've been able to put their finger on the name of someone that they served with in their unit or their platoon, and just the emotions that come out. And so when I was a few years ago, I had actually was asked to give a speech at the Wall on Veterans Day. And after the speech, I got a call asking me if I would want to be considered to be on the board of directors. And it's because, they, as with many organizations, specifically for Vietnam veterans, all of their board of directors at that time were all Vietnam veterans, in their mid 70s. And they were kind of like starting to think about legacy of the organization, and who were they going to bring in to help keep this organization going, and the legacy and the memory going. And so they brought on five people and all of us have some sort of tie to the Vietnam War. We've got a couple Gold Star daughters. We've got someone who has, dedicated thousands and thousands of hours as a volunteer at the Wall. And we've got then some folks who are sons of Vietnam veterans. And then you've got France Hoang and I, who are the first two Vietnamese Americans to be voted onto the board of directors, with France being a West Point grad and me being an Annapolis grad. We thought it was very complimentary, but it's also two people that I believe are great representatives of our community, of the Vietnamese American community, to be representatives on this Wall, because the Vietnam veterans, they are part of our legacy as well.
You do a lot of speaking. I'm curious if you anticipate speaking in the near future and addressing some of the issues surrounding the fall of Afghanistan and the impact on veterans that might be having.
I do speak a lot right now. I don't have any speaking engagements lined up specifically for that reason. Doesn't mean that there won't be a question after my speech.
What do you think? I mean, people are drawing a lot of parallels to Vietnam, and there's a lot of buzz going around right now among our community.
There are, and it's interesting. We've had a lot of discussion about it, right? And I think that yes, in my mind, there are some parallels, but there are also some major differences too that we can't disclude. But I think as we see what's happening in Afghanistan, and you can never, I'm always and I really focusing on, what is happening to our veteran community, right? I saw a friend of mine who served in the Army, who's Special Forces. I think he has 2 or 3 Purple Hearts. And he posted a picture on his social media of him. I think it was either shaking the hand or hugging a small child. And basically his only comment was, "We tried." I mean, and that, if that's something that people can't forget, is that, again, you got to separate politics from service. Our men and women went over there and they did everything that we asked them to do. Right. And everyone gives their 100%. And you see courage on the battlefield like you've never seen before. And I think, I think as we start talking, Vietnam, Afghanistan, then you start getting into the politics of things, and you take away from the actual service and valor and sacrifice of our men and women who served over there.
In my opinion, the post 9/11 veterans are going to be, when 50 years from now, I'm going to look back on this group of people as being another greatest generation, in my opinion, and the impact that they're going to have is going to be significant. Last question, Kim, what's on the docket? What's your focus and your goal for the next year, 18 months, as you look ahead?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm focusing on into the next year is always to figure out ways to have more impact, both here at National University by expanding our programs to meet the needs of our active duty service members. We're very good in the San Diego, California area. And that's one of the reasons why not only did they bring me on, but they relocated me here to Maryland, was to really expand the reach and the influence and the impact of National University for our service members and our veterans and their spouses, but also to take a look and continue the other nonprofit work that I'm involved with, not only at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, but I'm also on the board of the Woody Williams Foundation. And Woody is, as you may know, is the last living Medal of Honor recipient from the Battle of Iwo Jima and the last living World War II Medal of Honor recipient. He's 97 years old, and I'm on his board of directors. And what we do is we put up Gold Star family memorial monuments across the nation. So our Gold Star families know that their loved ones will always be remembered. They'll have a place in their state that they can go to remember and the sacrifice and the legacy of their loved one. But also then, working with not only Infinite Hero Foundation, and I'm on the advisory board for Iraq, Afghanistan, Veterans of America. I'm also on the board for the Kaplan Public Service Foundation.
As I said, you're busy.
And I'm on the advisory board for the Department of VA's Committee on Homeless Veterans, because as being the CEO of a former CEO of Veterans Village of San Diego, I'm very in tune with what can we be doing to prevent our veterans from falling into homelessness and experiencing homelessness, which is just a devastating thing for any veteran to encounter. But what services are needed that we can be doing better for?
How does everybody what's the best way for folks to get in touch with Kim Mitchell?
My work email is kmitchell2@nu.edu. So as NU is in nationaluniversity.edu, or just take a look at our website, nu.edu, if you're interested in any of our programs or resources out there, and our scholarships that are available. We have a lot of scholarships available for not only veteran spouses, but also for veterans that are not taking in the post 9/11 GI Bill.
We will put the links to Kim Mitchell on the show notes here. No need to write all this stuff down, but we'll make it available on the show notes. And in addition, we'll make sure that we put links in there to all of your extracurricular board activities as we will. Hey, Kim Mitchell, I want to thank you very much for stepping into the spotlight. I really appreciate you sharing your story. You'll forever be known to me as the precious pearl.
Thank you, Bob. It's been a pleasure being on this podcast with you.
Hey, you've been listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. We're coming to you on Tuesdays and Fridays and bringing very interesting stories about veterans in our community who are making a big impact. Certainly that is the case today. Kim Mitchell, National University Senior Vice President for Military, Veteran, and Government Affairs. Kim, thank you so much for your appearance on the program. I'll throw out my Army Bravo Zulu to you for your performance today, folks, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.